Hello, friends from around the world. We've got Nebraska in the house, Illinois. Where else did I see? Sweden and Toronto. That's so fun. Isn't the world amazing? And boy, don't we need to be reminded of that these days. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Khara Plicanic. This is CreativePro, and welcome to our live stream. We are going to be talking about making seamless texture patterns. What does that mean? Well, I'll show you a few different use cases. Really, you can use them for so many things, but we're going to start off working with a little known filter. Unless you do this kind of stuff, it's kind of a must when you're building seamless patterns in Photoshop, but a really cool little filter. And then we'll look at how you can use a few different tools depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And I'll show you how to save out your actual patterns and, of course, show you some different ways to implement them. So I hope that sounds good. And along the way, pop your questions in the chat because we will pop over there now and then to see what's going on. I see we've gotten more friends joining us from Arizona. Welcome. Yeah, so let me know what questions you have in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. That's the whole point of a live stream, right? Because you can ask questions and I can try and give you answers. And you can't do that with just a regular video. So let's take advantage of that and do it up. Now, if you are liking this kind of thing, I encourage you to get more involved with CreativePro. There's a number of ways you can do that. One really exciting way is Creative Pro Week, which is coming up, oh my gosh, before you know it, at the end of June 29th specifically to July 3rd. We are going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to be there. All your favorite speakers are going to be there. It's going to be so super fun, and it's always a good time. It's kind of like summer camp for creatives. It's just like a huge party of learning, and it's not about like speakers and attendees. It's like everybody just coming together and sharing and learning and growing. And it's, if you've not been to an event like this, there's really something to be said for being surrounded by people who know what you're talking about. And if you have a question about any of the apps, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, PowerPoint, Acrobat, all of that stuff, you can ask anybody and you can say like, hey, you know that weird thing that Photoshop does when whatever? And they'll be like, yes, oh my gosh. And maybe they'll have a fix for you about how to fix it. It's a real game changer. Anyway, you can check it out. And you can even save $100 with the code livestream over at creativepro.com/events. So let's see. I'm looking over here in the chat. We've got people joining us from Minnesota and New York State. So welcome. So glad you're here. Pop your questions in the chat and then, we'll come back around and I will do my best to answer them for you. Okay, so let me get into my workspace over here. And I forgot actually to set this up. There we go. This is almost looking right. So one of the things that I always think of when talking about seamless or like repeating patterns, let me get my panels out of the way here. There we go. Is as a kid, I totally remember watching, Warner Brothers cartoons, and especially like the Roadrunner or anything like that, where the characters would be like running in the foreground and you would see the background just go scrolling by. And even as a kid, I was like, there's no way that people are drawing and painting in and whatever that much background, right? So I would always look, even as a kid, I was looking to see where those repeats would happen. And so just as like a little joke, I made this example where we have a roadrunner in a train and he's going through the desert. And so what you might see if you were watching on TV is that the background would just be going by like this, and it would just keep going by. and it would keep going by. And depending on how carefully it was built, you might not notice repeats for a while, or maybe it would be really obvious really quickly. Anyway, I just thought that was hilarious. And so that is my little intro for you to kind of give you an idea of like how this works and how you might use it and all of that. So let's dive in and look at an example, shall we? So this is one example here, this background that I made repeatable. But first, let's start with something maybe more simple, which is just like a texture like this, right? And P.S., I put all of the files that you'll see me demoing today, I put links to them in the description below the video. They are free downloads from AdobeStock. You just have to log in with your Adobe ID, and then anybody can download these. So if you want to try and follow along, you are welcome to do that. And they're from the free collection, which is amazing. So I was looking today to pull these links for you, and I have so many. I was looking at my license history, and it's almost 900 pages long of downloads because I use AdobeStock all the time, specifically the free collection. So whether you're looking for like these kinds of background textures or walls, right? There's a lot of times you might want these seamless patterns for like the background on a website or behind someone in a portrait, or there's a million different use cases, but they're especially useful when you're working in an environment like on the web where the size of your document is going to be fluid, right? Like it's changing all the time. So we'll look at an example here in a minute. But it's a great source for searching for like walls or ground cover, things like that, that you might want to make into a pattern. So let's take this little just photo of like a stucco wall. And I will tell you, I downsized. The original image was much larger, but because I have like 10 files open at a time and I'm doing things live and I'm streaming and all of that, I didn't want to be working with 8,000 pixel images. So I have downsized all of the samples you're going to see to a 2,000 pixel length on the long edge. So just so you know. Okay, so let's get into this. How do we even start? First of all, let me clear my context bar. All right. The first thing that we're going to do is use the filter, the offset filter. And what this does, for those of you who have not used it, I'm going to show you like what it's doing so you understand, and then we'll use it because it's much easier than what I'm going to show you. But what it's basically doing is it's going to allow us to take the edges of the document or the file, the pattern, the image, whatever, and move them to the middle so that we can work on the seams. Because as you can imagine, the seams appear where this edge meets this edge and where the top edge meets the bottom edge. And we can't really edit that when they're on the edge like that. So we need to be able to move them to the middle. And you could take this photo and move it, let's say like halfway here, and then I could duplicate it and move the other half this way. So do you see what I've done? This is really hard to see the seams. So there I've moved the edge seams to the center. And then we'd have to take this whole thing and move it down like so, and then make copies and move those up. So do you see what I've done? Like if I kind of separate everything a little bit, you can maybe see it better. This is a really easy one to start with. But you can see possibly the seam right here. So what I've done is moved the seams into the middle, but I had to make a whole bunch of layers and like it's kind of messy and confusing, and I don't want to do that. So a better way to do it is with the offset filter. And then we don't have to mess with all that. So that is under the filter menu. We're going to go to filter, and it's literally the bottom of the bottom. So you go all the way down to other, and then all the way down to offset. So here we are, and now we get to tell it how much we want to offset it. Now you don't have to be precise. You don't have to have it in the middle. If you like that sort of thing, you can do the math and get it exactly in the middle. I'm not doing math in public, so I'm gonna just like rough cut it. But what you're looking for, by default here, these values will be set to 0. We want to make sure wrap around is selected. So that way, when we push the image over to, let's say, to the right or the left, it will, the part that goes off canvas will come around and wrap on the other side, and then we'll get that seam. Okay, so we want to enable wraparound. And if you care to have it be precise, we can see that my image is 2000 pixels down here. By the way, if you don't have this set to display your document dimensions, all you have to do is click that little caret next to that little info bar. Normally it's set to display document size. Not super helpful. I like to have mine set to document dimensions. But anyway, if you click document dimensions, you can see the size of the image. So the horizontal offset would be half. So instead of 2000 pixels, if I want to offset by half, I will offset by 1000 pixels. And now you can kind of see the seam going down here, down the middle. This was maybe too easy of an example to start with. We'll get to harder ones, I promise. Okay, and then we're gonna do a vertical offset, and we can either, again, wing it, like, I mean, you can do the math and make it perfect, or because this isn't even divisible by 2, I'm just gonna do 600 and we'll call it good. And so that's close enough. I can see the middle right here. Okay, then what we're gonna do is use any tool of your choice to remove the seams. Okay, so in this example, it's super simple. I don't need to be using my Gen AI credits for this. I'm just gonna use the remove tool. So the keyboard shortcut for the remove tool family is the letter J for just what I was looking for. So I'm going to grab that, and you'll notice the J family has a lot of members. So the one that we're looking for is the little Band-Aid icon that has the sparkles. So you can see there, Band-Aid with sparkles. So I'm going to select that. And because it's a brush tool, you can use your left and right bracket cursor or bracket keys to adjust the size of your brush. So I'm going to come over here and make it like decently big because we got to give Photoshop room to work. And I'm just going to click over here and hold the shift key. Whoa. And then I can drag straight across my image. Apparently really far. Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit. Command or Control minus to zoom out so I don't run off like that. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just holding shift to make a nice, whoops, I let go of shift. Hold shift to make a nice straight line. Okay, so this area is being painted. Now, yours might be behaving differently because I've got a couple of settings going on up here. One is that, where is it? Nope. I've got it set to sample all layers, which doesn't really matter right now. And I'm gonna have it create a new layer. And what else? Yeah. So then I'm going to commit it in order to render the removal. So sometimes you might have it set so that you just touch it and it just goes, but I like to see what I'm doing first. So I have to actually click the button up here or press enter. And I've got it set to add the new stuff to a separate layer, which is not required, but it's kind of helpful, especially when I'm showing this so people can understand what's happening. Okay, so here we go. Now, if I toggle this on and off, I think you can see on screen where it's filling in. But I don't totally love all of it. Like, there's some things I want to just manually adjust in here. So I'm going to merge this down by pressing Command or Control E. And I'm going to use my remove tool, and I'm just going to like brush over some things that I think I don't know. I feel like they make very obvious marks that are going to be very visible when we repeat this. So I'm just going to kind of clean those up. And again, I'll hit enter and it's going to remove it. So the remove tool doesn't use generative credits, in case you were wondering. That's what this little message is saying. All right, so let's say that looks pretty good. I'm going to merge it down again. And now let's see how this is looking as a pattern. So we can do that under the view menu. We can choose pattern preview. And now we're able to see this as a repeating pattern. And we can see that it doesn't have any seams. That doesn't mean it's perfect and that we can't tell it's repeating, but it does mean there are no seams. So while we're in this workspace and we can kind of see what this is looking like, we can move it around using the move tool as long as the background is not locked. So if it's locked, you can just click the lock to unlock it, and then we can move this around. And looking at this, if we think like, you know what, these lines here, I don't really like how this is looking. It's kind of showing up as a tick that just makes it really easy to see the pattern. We can again use the remove tool right here in this workspace. It's going to warn us that some things don't work in this mode. That's fine. I don't want to see that again. But we can actually work right in this space if we want. So I'm just going to kind of remove some of these more marks. And again, we will get rid of them. And that looks pretty good. So we can come out of preview mode, view, pattern preview to get out of there. And that I think is pretty good for this image. I'll show you about troubleshooting some stuff in the next one. So let's go ahead now and make this a pattern. To do that, all we have to do is go to Edit, Define Pattern. There it is. And we'll give it a name like Stucco Wall. And that's it. Now, how might we use this? Well, let's say we've got a website that is being built and you don't want to have giant graphics in the background on the web page because the internet, right? We want our site to be efficient. So a lot of times you use patterns. And so we can add a pattern here to this layout. We can just go down to the adjustment layer icon, and down at the bottom, we can add this as a pattern. And if we click the drop down up here, we will see the very last thing that we've added to our patterns is right here. So if I click on the stucco wall, we can add it. And now we see it as a background. And what's nice is no matter what device someone would be viewing this on, whether it's a phone or some giant screen, the pattern's just going to keep repeating. So as the interface scales, you don't have to worry about part of that background image being cut off or repeating weirdly and having a seam anywhere. So now that we have the pattern in here, we can do all kinds of things like adjust the angle of the pattern. We can scale the pattern. So maybe we need to make it a little smaller. Or, you can make it larger, but this is a really convenient way to work. Then we would click OK. And now we can see that the pattern exists here in our layers panel as an adjustment layer. So again, we got there by going to the adjustment layer icon, and at the very bottom, we select pattern. And because we defined the other image as a pattern, it's now available for purposes like this. Okay, let's see. Let's pop over to our chat. Where are you, chat? There you are. Let's see. Any questions coming in? I see hello from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Welcome. Oh, well, hello to you too. You've been here before. I remember your little cute little baber picture there. Welcome back. It's nice to have you with us again. All right, you guys. So let me know, is this making sense? Do you have questions about how it works or why we do things the way we do? let me know and I will do my best to help you out. All right, then let's jump in here to another example. That was almost too easy that it's hard to see. Oh, well, here's another example real quick where you might want to use that. So we can also come down here and add a pattern in this way, and maybe we want to use this wall pattern here. Now, of course, this looks not great because the lighting is different and all of that. So in a situation like this, how can we make this look more realistic? So one, we could also adjust the scale of the wall. So if we want it to look like she's a little further away from it, we can maybe make the scale smaller. But the other thing we'd want to do is now maybe add some lighting to match the lighting on our subject. So one thing, I would do two things here. One is I would make a gradient adjustment layer. And I would pull this up. We're going to use a linear gradient. And we can see that the light is coming from the left in this image. So I want to have the angle pointing that way also. Of course, the shadow shouldn't be blue, so we can change that. Why is it blue anyway? It's pulling the blue from this setting right here. So at the top of the gradients, there's a folder called Basics, and the middle one in the Basic folder creates a gradient that goes from transparent to whatever your active foreground swatch is. So this is the gradient that we want. We just want a different color on it. So if we click on this little gradient bar right here, we can pull up our gradient editor, and the color is right here. So this is where the full opacity is, and this is the transparent part. So I'm going to pull this color off. Am I not? Maybe I can't. I thought I could pluck it off. Yeah, I can. Okay, I hit delete. Used to be able to pluck it. Maybe they changed that, or I'm just clicking in the wrong spot today. But I'll pull that off, and then we want to change this color. So I'm going to double click on the swatch, which opens the color picker. And if I mouse over the image, I'm going to pull up the yellow in the image. But because I want it to be a shadow, I'm just going to come way down here to where that same tone, that same hue has a much darker brightness value, and maybe a lower saturation value. Okay, so I've got this kind of nice dark brown color, and I'll go ahead and choose that, and we'll click OK. And we'll click OK. And then for the blend mode here, I'm going to change it from normal to maybe linear burn. And I'll drop out the fill value. So we're getting a nice little shadow on the wall to mimic the lighting that is also on her. And I probably would also want to put in maybe a drop shadow for her. So if I select her layer, we could grab the effects and choose drop shadow. And same thing. I would do the same technique. So grab the yellow and get like a dark version of it. And I'm putting it to linear burn and a low opacity. And then you want to just hold up. Where is it? Where's our shadow? It's disappeared. Let's see. Let's do that and pull it back up. My shadow has run off. Weird. I don't know where it went. Let's try making another one. Drop shadow. Where are you? Hold up. Why is it not? Ah, because it wasn't enabled. How did that happen? Okay, so it wasn't visible. There we go. Now it's here. Let's try this again. Real world problem solving, my friends. All right, so I've set that same dark color. Let me move this so you can see all the settings. So we have the shadow happening over here. I'm going to change it from multiply to linear burn blend mode, and I want it to be farther away. So I'm going to drag it maybe something like that, soften it a little bit, and yeah, maybe we'll reduce. There we go, right? So that looks better. So that was a gradient that we added on top of the pattern layer here in the background. And we added this drop shadow. And for whatever reason, I had the drop shadow open, but I think earlier I had hidden this. And so it was like not showing. Or maybe the preview was disabled. I don't know. That was weird. But I'm glad we figured it out. Oh, yay. All right. So that is another use of how this could work. And again, this would be great. Like if you were using this on the web and maybe you need her to be like a certain size, but then depending on the device and the responsiveness of the site design, maybe this image needs to also be really long. And so because this is a pattern, we could extend the crop just forever and fill this in with pattern. See that? Oh, you weren't expecting that, were you? Look at that. So this could be as long as we wanted or, you know, as short as we need. And that is the value of doing this with patterns. All right, let's look at, let's see. Here's another example where this is the quintessential example. But it will blow your mind. And then it's also a great opportunity for me to show you what to do when it has some color toning issues. So let's look at this example. We're going to do the same thing. So we're going to start with the offset filter. So that is under filter, other, offset. And again, we can try and like make the perfect math, but I can see that it's already pretty close. And here's a little tip. If you like this to be in the center, but again, you don't want to do the math, you can also, wherever you find this little intersection here, you can just click, and if you drag it, and when you won't see the preview until you let go of your mouse, but you can drag that little center point wherever you want it to go. All right, so I'm going to put it here in the middle because my brain likes it, but I'm not trying to be precise. We'll click OK. And we can see like, whoa, we've got a seam here, right? Like this is a really visible seam because we have rocks that are being cut off, and we've got kind of shading tonal problems happening. So this will be a good example. Now in this case, we could use the remove tool, but the remove tool, unlike the generative fill, the remove tool doesn't give us options. It just removes something or, you know, replaces something, and then like you're kind of stuck with it. So I'm going to spend generative credits here today for you, for your benefit. So let's do that with the, whatever this guy's called, the selection brush tool. Am I the only one who gets really confused that this is grouped with the lassos? I don't know why my brain can't make sense of that. But anyway, this brush lets us paint selections. So what I'm going to do is very strategically come in here and paint. So we can change the size of our brush with those left and right bracket keys. And I don't want to just draw a straight line across here, because what I want to do is try and guide Photoshop to how it can redraw these cobbles. And so instead of just drawing a straight line across, I'm going to kind of follow the contours of the rocks so I can encourage it to rebuild them kind of more the way that I want, or in a way that I think makes sense. So for example, right here, I'm going to paint basically this whole rock and let it figure it out. And same with this. Okay. And then I'm going to let go and make my brush smaller. And I think this rock is fine. And we have a seam here, and we have the mortar in between. So what I need Photoshop to really do is just like extend this edge of this rock. So I'm going to kind of paint it in like that. And here, I think the rock above could be used to make a whole new rock down below. So I'm just going to kind of fill in this area. And over here now, ooh, what do we do? I'll let Photoshop figure this one out, but I'm going to just kind of get this whole blob fixed, and we'll just keep going. So I want it to figure out this rock, and it can do that. Let's see down here, same thing. We'll just kind of give it some guidance. So I don't know that you have to do it this way, but when I was using this image earlier, I found that painting it in like this and kind of helping it decide where to generate things was really helpful. All right, so maybe something like that for the horizontal. And now we're going to do the same thing with the top stuff. So like this rock right here on the left, I really like. And so I'm going to go over the rock more to the right so that it'll hopefully just fill that all in with a new rock. Like extend the rock on the left. All right, here, let's see. That could get confusing. I don't know, Photoshop, you're gonna have to figure it out. I might give it a little more room on that side and maybe over here. All right, coming down here. I don't know, I don't think you have to think this hard, but I just am because I like it. All right, let's have it redo like all of this. It can figure out. Okay. All right. Is that pretty good? I think that's pretty good. Maybe I'm going to let it have a little more room up here too. So we want to give it more room to figure out like how to do stuff, but not so much room that it just invents wildly outrageous things. All right, so that is my selection. I made that with the selection brush. Now let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to pull up my contextual taskbar. If you right click anywhere on the pasteboard, it's a quick way to hide or show that taskbar. Then we're going to just click generative fill. We'll leave the prompt blank and we'll just click generate. Da-da-da-da, and here's where it's live. So I can't fast forward this part and we have to just cross our fingers it doesn't do something bonkers. Hey, let's look at this. Okay, so there's option 1. I think that's like pretty amazing, except this part looks weird. Let's see what option 2. All right, and option 3. No. What do you guys think? Put it in the comments. I think option 2 is the way to go. That's pretty awesome, actually. All right, so I'm going to go with option 2. Let me know what you guys think. And that's perfect. So in the layers panel, I'm going to merge this down. So I usually work non-destructively, but in this case, it's fine. So I'm just going to press Command or Control E to merge that down. And I think this looks pretty good. Now here is where we have to test Photoshop because I can already see where there's going to be a problem. So we offset the image and then we fixed the seams, but we also are kind of, in a sense, generating some new seams. Like I can already see that this area here is not going to line up with anything over here. So we have to re-zero this out. So let's go back to the filter menu and we'll go back to other offset. And let's put in some other values here that are just kind of, yeah, that's weird. All right, so I'm just moving things around. Another way you could do this is you could just go back to that pattern preview. Either way, and now I'm going to zoom in, and what we're looking for are any weird seam bits. So I'm just going to kind of move up and down throughout the image so that I can check. And I'm not seeing any weird seams yet, but surely there are. Like here, okay? Here's what I knew would be a problem. Let me zoom in. Can you see this? So like this looks great. And then we come down here and it's like, what happened? So this is why you offset it, fix the seams, and then you need to like offset it again to figure out if you've created any new problems. So we have, but they are going to be very easy to fix. So let's see, we can just try this with the remove tool so we don't have to use generative credits, but we'll see. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. So I'm just going to paint over this, and I can see the seam goes just right through there, and let's see if Photoshop can figure that out. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. Yay, it did it, and we didn't have to use credits, so that's good. Let's keep looking. Move over here and see if we see any other weird seams. It's possible that they're usually, I feel like they come in pairs. So I usually find two when I'm doing this, but maybe we just got lucky or maybe I'm missing it. Either way, that is the process. Okay. So once you get your seams out, you have to kind of recheck. Another way, of course, to check is to use the pattern preview. So I'm going to merge this layer down by pressing Command or Control E. And then let's just go up here to our view, pattern preview. And now we can really see the whole thing in repeat. I mean, it's seamless. It is seamless. I'm seeing comments that there's one more seam halfway down on the left side. Wow, you guys have eagle eyes. Oh, is it this? Oh, yes. You're right. So let's fix that. See this? It's so helpful to have more eyes. I'm going to get out of this view mode just because it kind of makes me a little crazy. Here we are. All right. So here, I think this is hopefully the one, right? Hopefully there's not another. All right. And maybe I'll just pull this up a little bit. So I'm going to give Photoshop the chance to redraw all of that. And let's try it. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Yes, perfect. You see how easy that is? And it's really fun. All right, guys, I feel pretty good about this for right now. But when we are in that pattern view mode, this is a pretty nice and evenly lit scene. So obviously there are things like lighting that you have to think about when you're choosing your source images. And we can talk more about that in a minute. But if I'm looking at this bright orange stone is definitely standing out, and it's making it really easy to see the pattern. So let's talk about how we can address that. So I'm going to unlock the layer here by just clicking on it. That way I can use the move tool to just move this pattern so that the stone is just in the middle here for me to work on it really easily. So there's a couple different ways we could do this. We could adjust the hue and saturation in the image, and we could target the orange tones of this rock, but a lot of the rocks are going to have some orange tone. So another thing that we could do if we want to isolate this a little more is let's just paint over it. So I'm going to create a new blank layer. I'm going to grab my regular paintbrush and not a wild brush tip. Let's just get like a nice soft brush. And I'm gonna, with the brush tool active, if you hold down the Alt or Option key, it'll switch you to the eyedropper. And then we can just sample another color from the scene. So if I just want this to be like kind of a boring beige color, I'll just select one. And then we've got this new layer over here, and I'm going to change the blend mode of that layer to color. And then I can make my brush a little bigger with that right bracket key next to the letter P on the keyboard. And I'm just going to paint over this to get rid of that super bright color. And you'll notice that it's gone now. Now this one is still kind of bright, but we can also adjust this. If we want to keep a little hint of it, we can just reduce the opacity here. So maybe I'll paint this guy too a little bit. There we go. And this also works anytime that you might want to lighten or darken parts of an image. You can use any of your favorite techniques for dodging and for burning. So maybe I'm going to pull up, let's do it with levels adjustment layer. And if we change the blend mode of the levels adjustment layer to screen, whoa, it's going to brighten everything. Now, adjustment layers come with a mask, so we can now hide this adjustment by inverting the mask. So when the mask is white, we're seeing that adjustment everywhere. Now, I didn't actually do anything to the levels, but I just changed the blend mode to screen. And by simply changing the blend mode to screen, it's going to lighten stuff. You can see if I switch it back to normal, it just looks normal. So we can work with this in screen blend mode if we want to, but let's invert this mask so that it's not showing up everywhere. And we can invert it by selecting the mask in the layers panel, and then we press Command or Control I, and that'll invert it. Now we can paint on the mask using our paintbrush with white paint and a very low flow setting of like 2 or 3% even. And now maybe I just want to kind of dab this guy is a little dark, and I feel like it's just kind of standing out a little bit. So that kind of just helps it fade. You can see, look at the difference. Isn't that crazy? It just, I don't know, it just stuck out to me like a sore thumb a little bit. So you can use an adjustment layer. You could dodge and burn. You could simply fill a layer with nothing, set it to screen mode, and then paint with white or black. And that would accomplish a similar thing. All right, so when we're happy with it, then we can merge all this down. And we would do the same thing. So we choose Edit, Define Pattern, and we can call it Cobbles. And there you go. Now we could add this. We could go back to our web document here, and maybe instead of this, maybe this is a website for seamless textures, and so they want to show them off. So now instead of their stucco texture, we can double click on that adjustment layer and choose our cobble texture. How cool is that? And again, we can move it around as long as you double click on that thumbnail for that texture, the pattern adjustment layer. When this little window is open here, you can drag to reposition the pattern however you want. We can adjust the angle of the pattern. We can change the scale so it's much smaller, or whatever you want, however you need it to be. It's so flexible, and I just love that. All right, let's check in and see how you guys are doing in the chat. Do you have questions for me? Oh, good. Charmaine, you are the one who spotted the other one, so thank you. Yes, I found it. I'm glad. Thank you for finding that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So I see some questions about, is this going to be recorded? Yes, this is being recorded right now. And so you get to be here and ask your questions live. And then when we're done, this just becomes another YouTube video. So you can watch it as many times as you want. And it is there for your reference. Isn't that cool? I love that. Streaming is so cool. Yes, Charmaine says, loving it. Totally makes sense. I want to see a more complicated one, right? So the cobbles were a little bit more complicated. I brought along a couple of other examples because one of them that I was kind of surprised worked. Of course, now that I say that, just now it's going to like not work because I'm on camera. But let's take a look. I have an example here of the clovers. The clovers are super fun. Also works really well. But the one that I was kind of nervous about is this one, okay? Because of the difference in the depth of field, right? So these are lavender, lilac. I don't remember. Anyway, whatever it is, beautiful purple flowers. Some of them are close to the camera and they're in focus. And then the ones that are farther away, because of that shallow depth of field, they are showing up blurred, which can create a lot of room for confusion and issues when it comes to making a seamless pattern out of this. But let's give it another go. And if it crashes and burns, I have proof. I have proof that I've already saved one that it does actually work. But let's try it. Okay, so this is also linked down below if you want to give it a whirl. And again, I've resized all of these to 2000 pixels just because you don't generally, when you're making patterns, you don't want them to be huge, right? Because I mean, you do want them big. I guess we should talk about that. You want them big enough that it's not repeating at such a small scale that it looks ridiculous. But you don't need like 8,000 pixels. And that's how these all come out of AdobeStock. It's like pretty large. So I've resized it to 2000. So let's try this again. So we're going to go up to filter, other, offset, and 1,000. And what's the height on this? Oh, 1333. No thanks. All right, so I'll just do like 650. That's close enough. Okay, so whoa, look at this. Look at the mess that this is going to be. I think I'm going to do Gen Fill for this because I think it'll handle the discrepancies and the depth of field a little better. And I don't even know. I'm going to kind of give it a lot of leeway for how it wants to handle this. So, good luck, Photoshop. This is trickier. All right. So, I don't know. Maybe like that. And then of course, we got to do this. And I'm selecting this empty area to the left because I want it to have full range to either make something entirely new there, or I guess if it wants to empty that whole area, I don't know. I don't know what it'll want to do, but I want to give it room to play. So that's what I'm trying to, all this area that's shallow back here, I'm taking it so, and maybe up here too. So it just knows that it can do whatever it wants. All right. This might be too much. I don't know. We'll see. Generative fill, I might have overpainted that area. Let's see what happens. Well, let me see your questions here. Yes. Welcome. Oh, Joseph from South Africa. How cool. Okay. Ooh, look. I mean, I see some problems, but that's just version 1. Let's see. Okay. Still a little weird. I like that the third version, or this version. Oh, this is wonky right here. And none of that. Oh, that was actually the original image. All right. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you have a favorite? I think 1 or 3. Ugh, so hard. I don't know. I'm going to go with 3, I guess. All right. Now let's zoom in and see what we're dealing with. What kind of weird. So, of course, Photoshop can get confused between like what's in focus and what's not. And then you might have like one stock that's like in and out of focus, like right here. Oh, but look at that. I thought this was a problem from AI, but no, that was part of the actual image. So I guess we'll leave it. I guess that looks good. I'm going to merge it down, and now we got to check again for those double seams, those issues. And also, you guys, my screen is so I can't tell what's a seam and what is just like smeary fingerprints on my on my monitor, on my screen here. Okay, so let's mess with the offset again so we can find these seams. So we're going to go back to filter, other, offset. And now yeah, we've got some seam problems. So let's just leave it right here and run this again. So I'm gonna, again, we got to figure out this area and this area, that area. All right, let's see. We'll do generative fill again. Oh, maybe I could have done that probably with just the remove tool. This is so tricky when you've got this depth of field. It gets, hey, that looks good. Do I even want to see the other versions? Oh, they all look really good. All right. Let's bring this into pattern preview mode and see if we can find some seams. So we'll go up to view, pattern preview, and I'm going to unlock the layer here because I don't know, I like to keep my focus on my canvas. And so I like to be able to drag it through the canvas. And in order to do that, you have to unlock the background. Oh, I see a seam right here, but I'm just going to use the remove tool for that because that's easy. Oh, and I see another little one right here. You see, like, I think they always come in pairs. It feels like. So when you spot a seam, when you spot one, look extra hard because it almost always has a little, there we go. It almost always has a partner in crime. Is this a seam? Nope. Is this a seam? Kind of. Ew, what's that? That's a seam. All right, so you get the idea. There's always some cleanup that it needs to be done. But I think that looks pretty good. Yay! Debbie says, love this. Can I add that? Yeah, love this. Yay, Debbie. I'm so excited. I love that you love it. I love it too. It's fun, right? And I love this image especially because I think it's easy to shy away from an image like this because of the depth of field. Like it just seems like it would be an issue. So obviously we can see that it repeats because we see this like a grid happening, but when you use these types of patterns, you know, it's not going to be so small like this. It's going to be much larger. And they're mostly used, something like this would maybe really just be used on like a web situation where it's just to account for different screen sizes and things. So you're not going to see like super repetitive tiling, but of course it depends on what you're trying to do with it. So let's talk about, let's go to the chat and you guys tell me what questions and things that you have or comments or whatever. Oh, I see one from Charmaine. Is it possible to take an existing pattern, flatten it somehow, not an adjustment, and make it longer so it repeats? Yes. So, okay, that is a great question. And that's actually something that I could easily show you, I think, with my little silly road runner setup. So let me actually go back to that for you real quick. And over here, let me hide all my stuff. So here we can see the pattern. Now this one, obviously there's a seam at the top, but I knew that I was building it to just fit within the confines of the train car. So I didn't care. So just for the sake of argument, I'm going to crop this to just be the actual pattern size. So now if I double click this pattern and I just, you know, pull it, we can see here that it just repeats. Endless Roadrunner land here. Now, if you want then to be able to basically take this pattern and turn it into an image that you could then duplicate or whatever, you can, once you have the pattern placed, all you have to do is right click, not on the thumbnail. You have to come over here to like the empty area of the layer. If you right click on it and you can choose rasterized layer. And that is going to just break it from its pattern. I think this is what you were asking. And now if I grab the move tool, for example, now it's just this repeating tile. So now, you can do whatever you want with it. If I want to duplicate it and I don't know, have it overlap in a different place and like make a new repeat here and get rid of this seam, you could do that. Or if you line it up on the end, you have to break it in the right spot, but then it would be seamless. So let's see, how would we... That's one option. The other is that if I had created this document to be the same exact size as the pattern tile itself, then it would work perfectly. But let me see, because I don't remember what size this pattern was. I wonder if I look in my patterns panel. Did you guys know that there is a patterns panel? I think if we hover, it might show the size. Yes. Okay, so here's my desert. So the size of the pattern tile is 2000 by 1334. So let's make a new document that's 2000 by 1334. Really? That doesn't seem right, but ungroup artboards. All right. And then let's see if I can drag this over here. I'm suspicious, but okay. So it looks like this might be the panel right here. So as long as your artboard or your canvas is the same size as the pattern tile, then the seams should line up on the edges. So we can test that, of course, not by dragging our pattern here, because then it will just seamlessly repeat. But there we go. Here's the panel. So if our canvas and the pattern tile are the same size, then we do that little trick where we rasterize that layer. Now we should be able to, let's see, if I drag this over and make another copy, let's see if it lines up. Yes, there you are. You see? So that is a way that you can take the pattern tile and actually just break it into like its full size. You just need your document to be the same size as the pattern tile. I hope that answers your question. What else do you guys have, right? Yay. Charmaine says, aha. So yes, hope that worked out. Debbie is loving this. Yay, guys. Well, thank you so much. I hope you found this helpful. When it comes to choosing the source image that you use for your patterns, you want to think about what's going to work, right? So when I was looking for this landscape scene to be able to create my little road runner joke, I very specifically and purposefully chose an image that did not have the sun in it. Because as long as the sun is off camera, you can just kind of run and seamlessly tile that forever. But obviously, if you have the sun in there, it's going to get weird, like immediately. Like that just is not going to work. So I chose an image without a sun. You just have to think about not everything makes for a great seamless pattern. That's not to say that you might not be able to work at it for an eternity and get it to work, but anything with the sun in there is going to be messy. Or if something has perspective, right? Like if you have a road running away from the camera, then obviously repeating that's going to be weird. So you get the hang of it. The more you play and the more you try, the more you will figure out what works well and what doesn't. So thanks so much for joining me, everyone, and having fun and exploring this. And again, this obviously is on YouTube, so you can rewatch this as much as you want. And if you want to come join us in Nashville, you can save $100 with the code livestream over at creativepro.com/events. I will be there. I hope to see you there. And you can come say hi in person. And as always, let me know what other things you would like to see us cover with a live stream here for Creative Pro. And yeah, until next time, happy photoshopping. See ya. Bye-bye.